afternoon, everybody, and I think good morning in Switzerland. I hope so. So yes, it's been time. So it's been my pleasure to invite Dr. Dragana Favre, who was my friend, good friend of mine, and my classmates also during my masters. So she's an expert in a field of psychiatry, and as you all aware that this is what is a need of our. Dr. Dragana has completed her master's with me at International Max Planck Research School in Neuroscience, and then she completed her PhD at European Neuroscience Institute Network Institute in Alicante, Spain. She is a specialized in psychiatry and psychotherapy in Geneva, Switzerland, and she completed her analytical psychotherapy curriculum in Young Institute in Constant, Zurich, Switzerland. She is mainly working in deep exploration of unconsciousness, the dream interpretation, and the perinatal psychiatry and treatment of the existential crisis. A very warm welcome to Baba Farid Group of Institution and especially Baba Farid College, which is situated in Bhatinda, which is a bit remote area of the Punjab, India. And Punjab has been a very long tradition of livelihood. So I hope once you come here, you will see that the nature of this city and all the state, and definitely you've been visiting India once. I think I heard that you have been to India, so you have seen some part of the India, and I will welcome you this part only through the online. And unfortunately, we don't have a system where we can see student, but they are there. So almost, I think around about 150 students have joined with us, and they'll be asking. And these students are basically from science background. They are from BSc medical and a non-medical stream. So it's BSc physics, BSc chemistry, BSc zoology, masters of zoology, master of botany, and BSc biotechnology, and also agriculture, and also some student of the engineering colleges. So mostly the UG and PG, and also one of the very important aspect is the faculty, which is also joining with us from a different stream at this college. And we gathered here on to discuss one of the important phenomena, which I believe that the mental health is the next pandemic in line. So although the COVID is still not off, and as you can see today, also new guidelines have came from government of India, and that the restriction in number of people in a gathering in for any function has restricted, and the masks and there's a vaccination drive already going on. Fortunately, we had 140 crore people have already vaccinated in India, so that drive is still going on. And from today, registration for children also has been started in India. So that's a few, this thing. But still, the problem is that we have found that the at least 20-30% of the people who are suffering from COVID suffer from one or the other kind of the mental health issue, like mainly anxiety and depression, and the people around it, because the COVID is so much in the news, and the so much kind of myths and other things are there that people is very obvious to become anxiety. And one another issue which led to India, especially not India, I mean, I think most of the developing nation, is an economic setback, because people have lost their jobs or their salary was cut. So one kind of economic burden happened with them, and then lead to different kind of mental health, which is not there in the Europe and other developed country. So that is the addition. So I'm sure Dr. Dragana will enlighten us with some aspect, and she is expert in this thing. I'll not take much time of it. So I'll request Dr. Dragana, and once again a warm welcome to our institute virtually. Welcome, and I think we can start.
Thank you very much, Zahed, for this very kind and gentle introduction, and really hope that I'm going to visit you in life very soon. First of all, I would like to say that it's a really enormous pleasure to be first working day here in Geneva of 2022, here with you. While preparing, I was finding a really vast amount of material on Google. So I decided actually not to focus myself on numbers, on statistics, and rather to go into the more practical aspects of how to adapt, how to survive, and how to go through the crisis. And this crisis of COVID, but also with my satellite wish to give you some tasks, actually, how to go to some maybe some other aspects and some other material and some other advice and suggestions how to go to some other novelty facing conditions and situations. Well, you heard me well that I said maybe some tasks, which is maybe counterintuitive because I'm here maybe to help you, and then I'm asked you something to work, but this will gonna go a little bit later. That effort in maybe one of the best way to be the active actors of our own path and our own way to not to surrender to the novelty, and our best way how to go through the crisis and how to control something that happened as a surprise to our life. Well, if you rather aim to know something a bit more precise about the incidents, about the numbers, about the exact symptomatology, I would be rather happy to help you and to provide you with some presentations, with some articles, and please don't hesitate to contact me. I'm having you here. I don't know where is my first slide. Sahil, if you can put me on my first slide, here it is. There is my email here, and please be welcome to contact me by tweet, and I will forward you some of the material. And also, I can suggest you to look at the official site of WHO, of CDC, or Mayo Clinic, which did an excellent job of providing some data on general situation of mental health and also on some guidelines how to go through it. Well, first, this is a little bit of the general stuff, but let's a little bit more what I'm doing and what I've seen in the last 2 years since we had our onset of COVID situation. Well, I'm doing, as you heard from Zaved, I'm working in field of psychiatry and analytical psychotherapy, also neuroscience and medicine are my background, official background. Well, psychiatry is a field of medicine, but analytical psychotherapy or Jungian or deep psychology means that I would like to say that I'm kind of a translator from the unconsciousness and consciousness, which means something which is hidden, something which is deep, is unseen, and which is suppressed in unconsciousness of a patient. And something which is in the conscious field, but sometimes people don't really can relate to, is sometimes disturbing, and people really cannot really understand what is happening and why they sometimes end up saying something, reacting and acting in such a manner. And sometimes we need professionals who would, through a talk therapy, but also some other mediums, sometimes play or sound play, sometimes drawings, or sometimes dream interpretation, go and connect with something which is a little bit more hidden, sometimes hidden through the personal unconsciousness, sometimes collective unconsciousness, generational, familiar, and family, and we try to understand what actually made us react in such a way that we do. Well, that was something that we saw through the last 2 years, that patients actually end up being more disturbed than usually. Well, I've seen myself two big groups of patients. First of all, a big group of new patients that were asking for help, and then coming back of my ex-previous patients. Well, coming back of the ex-previous patients were really interesting that they were asking for 1, 2, or 3 sessions that they will have to reconsolidate something that they learned from before, that kind of reconnect with some pillars of knowledge, or something that they already knew, or something that they learned before, and then they would readapt to that and continue from their previous life. When the new people that I will learn meet for the first time, very often would just realize that actually what COVID did was accelerate or metabolize or catalyze something that was already inside of them, but probably wouldn't pop out in their mind for probably a couple of years, or maybe many, many more years to come. So actually, COVID didn't bring something new, but actually revealed something that was not really supposed to come to their consciousness for many more years to come. So COVID doesn't bring something new, but COVID actually was a catalysator of something that was really hidden inside. So actually that actually is very interesting, because I'm going to now to the next slide, where I'm showing something which is actually rather common. This is our normal life. Normal life, where we see like life as it is, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things that are happening without any special order, a lot of surprises. And what we do with a lot of surprises? Well, we adapt. And COVID is definitely not the first virus in our history, and definitely, and I hope not the last, because that would mean that we will survive it and we'll have a lot of other things that will happen to us, and that we will have a lot of other things to which we will survive. We will actually confront, and we will survive. But what is different with COVID is that we are, all of us that we are now in this conference, is that we are all now facing it. We are all alive now, and that it is happening at the planetary level, and that we are all now in the age of informatics, that we are all age of internet and the globalization, and of age of information that is shared instantaneously. So what is happening, that information is present immediately all over the planet at the same time, so we are immediately exposed to it. So what is also interesting is that immediately we have to react to that in a way that is totally unprecedented in our history, and we have to adapt very fast to that all over the planet without learning on the experiences of the some other nations, cultures that already did with that, and then slowly it propagated through the planet. Usually when something new happens, well, we learn that through statistical learning. What means statistical learning? Well, it means that we actually usually have to extract some pattern regularities from environment over time. Also, we usually have to chunk some regularities depending on some long-term familiarities, and usually we're using our working memory for that. As you heard, both time you have some working memory, long term we have over time. Time is quite important component in that, and this time is not so much referring to the objective time, but our subjective time. I like using ancient Greeks' way of seeing the time, at least in psychology, although it is not to be neglected. Circular time that is very much used in many cultures, and very important when we work in psychology to take in account circular time, especially in Asian cultures, which is very, very important. But most of the people, most of the time, are when they say time, they tend to think about chronos, linear time, thinking like past, present time, and the future, which is most of the time unknown future. But then we have to think about it. Ion, it is eternity, meaning all time, especially the time of dreams, unconsciousness that I like to work with. And this is where everything is mixed, past, future, and the present tense. And then one which we tend to forget, except we are interested in meditation, mindfulness, and this is kairos, now, this moment, time that is moving with us. Every circadian time now, which is every time with us. Now is, well, this now is not the same time now, which was when I started this slide. So what happened in 2020 when WHO was put epidemic to a pandemic level? Well, suddenly this uncertainty level actually end up being even more different, even more uncertain than usually, and people have all various type of reactions. Well, there is a lot of different reactions and all kind of a spectrum, and it would be impossible to just name them all. So I just put here 4 different types of reactions, just to name some of them. Internal repetition, unknown future, pessimistic future, and kind of optimism. All will be fine, and people will learn a great lesson from this experience. Let me go a little bit more into that. Well, internal repetition, that I would say a little bit is COVID would last forever. People would say that COVID is just here to stay forever with us. That means that in one or another form, COVID will be with eternal mutation forever with us, and let's not risk to change something. Let's just adapt to that. Another option is world will just come like it was before. We will eradicate COVID, and that's it. Pessimism, we're just going to be doomed. It's apocalypse is starting, and then this famous, probably you've seen it all on the social media, photo with photoshopped or not of dolphins in Venice, especially in the first 3 months of starting of onset of pandemia, like we are going to save the earth. Let's go a little bit even more deeper into that. First scenario, being stuck in a comfort zone. Let me go. Like, comfort zone is something very interesting concept, and that I'm coming to that what I mentioned at the very beginning, why we need the effort and why it is very hard to make an effort. Comfort zone. Well, this is a concept that I get a very, very long discussions with my patients, because especially patients who are suffering from addictions, depression, or anxiety. I would very often say, well, you're deeply stuck in a comfort zone, and they will just have a really, really strong reaction. Say, how could you say that? I'm suffering. How could you say I'm not comfortable? Well, of course you're not comfortable, but that doesn't mean that you're not in a comfort zone. Comfort zone doesn't mean that you're comfortable. That means that you just start falling down in a precipice, in an abyss. And then just here, there is a branch that stops you falling even down, deeper and deeper, and you're just so happy that you're not falling deeper. You're just here, and then you're just standing there and so like, oh God, I'm relieved. And then it's that. I don't want to go any deeper. I'm staying here, and I'm going to stay here, and maybe I'm going to build a house there. I'm going to stay there forever. And then I'm not going to risk anything to go higher, because higher, yeah, it's maybe sky is blue there, but I don't know what is there. Maybe there is another abyss, maybe there are wild animals, maybe it's perfect. But in order to go there, under this maybe perfect world, I need to start climbing here, and by climbing here, I can fall again here. And not here, but just really to the abyss. And then I'm going to again be at the starting point. And this is what is happening with many people who get in the state of anxiety, which is, no matter how unpleasant it is, well, under brackets, and it is kind of comfortable because it's not like depression. Not really. So don't take me here really. Don't judge me when I say comfortable. Not really comfortable, meaning it is highly, highly unpleasant, but just we know how unpleasant it is, and it's not unpleasant that it might be unpleasant. So we don't want to, and somebody pushing us to go here would make us feel even guiltier. And it would be nice that there's some big bird coming here and helicopter coming and saving us. But actually, the best is to be in a static position. And static position is very interesting because there is no going upper and downer. There is no actually position of dying because everything is, no time is passing. No possibility of dying, no possibility of progress. So no risk taking, no too many efforts, no fear is in a both position. We are stuck in a kairos, we are stuck in now. Chronos, this kind of a linear and time is totally ignored. It's not worth of moving, meaning we are existing passively. This is a comfort zone, and this is a passive zone, a passive situation, and this is when we are not going to sabotage efforts of going out of the crisis, but we are not going to do anything actively to make it better. Second option is, unknown future, meaning let's go to the back, let's go to the situation like it used to be. Let's ignore COVID. Let's ignore everything what's happening. But what is very bad about this? Well, we are making a denial. Actually, we cannot really deny that. We cannot really pretend that nothing ever happened because something did happen, and we know that it happened. So whatever we do is actually has some circumstances, some consequences. So actually, we have either we are going to do some active action, we are going to be a passive action, active inaction, and real inaction is close to zero. What is happening here is that we are actually ignoring or denying kairos. We're ignoring that now is happening, and we are actually just passively following the chronos or linear time and pretending nothing is happening. And then we have pessimism, optimism. Well, this optimism is supposed to be here, but I think I had some problem with the slides. Well, pessimism is what I'm not really sure what was in this happening in India about that, but in Europe it was very, very present. A collapsology movement and fatalism. Nothing will ever happen in a good direction. This is the start of apocalypse, and we are not going to survive the crisis. Here we have a really, really big lack of faith in the future versions of ourselves. Future versions are not going to survive. Me now, I know better what is going to happen than future version of me. Future version of me is going to fail. Optimism, which is supposed to be on the other side, is having a faith because future version of me is equal me plus all the experiences in the future plus me now, which is actually rather true because all the future experiences of me plus me now is probably going to be better. So optimism in that sense has a little bit more sense. But then on the other hand, both of them are having a little bit of selective resources and a bias, which is totally, it is uneven distribution of resources, and both of them are going into the extremes. So why I'm talking about all that? Because this is very important that we place ourselves, what is our own position in our own subjective time in order to know who we are, because without defining where we are not going to be able to position what and to place our own limits in order to know how to protect ourselves from what is going to happen, to all the surprises, and to know how to react, and to know what are our strong points and a little bit less strong points. And here comes your first task, to-do list. First question is your place. Recognize, and this is why I chose this kind of presentation and not kind of presentation with numbers, since this is a typical symptomatology list, like are you depressed, are you anxious, and etc. Because I would like that you get to know the questions which are a little bit down to earth, but that you can relate to. So let's see, can you recognize a pattern that you use in general when you're meeting the novelty, and something new, whatever new is happening? So not just pandemia, but just whatever new is happening. How do you react? Are you scared? Are you aggressive? Do you try to ignore? Second, since the onset of pandemics, how did you react? Did you ignore? Did you say like, oh yes, something's happening? Did you say, oh my God, I'm scared, or I fear that somebody of my close people, something's going to happen to them? Then, third question, what is the pattern that was happening in your surrounding, your family, in people who are in your school, in the faculty, in your country, in your household? Then, what was the difference between your own response and widely accepted style in your surrounding? And then how that makes you feel. So now you will see a little bit, you will have a hint what was happening and the temporality between you and your surrounding. Let's go further. You and the others, a little bit more. Who are your good willing challengers? Critical thinkers. So people don't think like you, but challenging you in a way that you like to discuss. You know, people who would say like, oh no, I don't think that is really good to protect yourself or vaccinate or whatever, but will do that to protect you, or to provoke you, or to make you a little bit more to see if you are going to use good arguments, or people who are just going to a little bit to see how well placed are your arguments. What are your inhibitors? You know, like people who are really just want to provoke you, but they don't have good arguments, you know, who just shake you, and they're not, you know, your belief system is just totally disturbed, but actually you have no idea what are their arguments. You know, they just have really kind of some strange, strong energy, but actually you don't really know that is based on what. They're just kind of very strong, but that is strong more like reason is more their charisma. They have some kind of strange energy that used on you, but is actually not really something rational. Who support you, but without a critical filter? They support you because they love you. They support because they want something from you. But you know, they don't support you because they really believe that you're right. And then, can you trust yourself? Or you are just doing things and sometimes you're saying just to post the others. So, are you in the same temporality with the others around you? Are you feeling that people around you, you can trust them and yourself? And then you and you. And now it's coming a little bit more tricky. Your relation with past you. Are you the same like you used to be? Or something really changed there? Are you the same like you've been before the crisis? What is your relation with future you? Do you think you in the future you're gonna change? Do you think you can trust your future version of you? How much do you trust your abilities of future you? How much you can delegate, and you think that what you do now, it's fine, but sometimes in the future you can do it. What you cannot do today, leave it for tomorrow. How much? This is tricky one. You can be spontaneous. And how much you can let things in the past and just observe the present moment. And then you here and now, are you be able to just feel when you are just contaminated from something from the past or from the future? Here, we are tackling a little bit the question of depression, contamination from the past, and anxiety, contamination from the future. So here, we are a little bit more tackling the questions about you and your place in the world. So now, if we honestly, and this is each one for oneself, answered all these questions, we can estimate a little bit your position in the society, your critical thinking, and you in your own position with the time instances, your time coordinates, a little bit time coordinates. So next task is visualization. Don't worry, you're not going to do only the tasks. So drawing the schema of your psyche. Well, this is really, really basic schema of your psyche. I'm not going to ask you a really big schema, just a little bit to have a little bit of hint what we are doing. Sometimes not all the time, but sometimes in the psychotherapy. Well, why we are doing that? Just that you get a little bit clearer what are your limits, how to protect yourself, and how to get a little bit idea how to prevent from anxiety disorders, panic attacks, and entering the pre-burnout, which I'm going to talk a little bit later. And why it's relevant from what I'm talking today about COVID, because as I said already before, what I observe with my patients, it's an accelerator of hibernated processes in ourselves and in the society. So this is the schema. So this here, these are these limits. For those who are a little bit more in the biomedicine studies, this looks a little bit like a cell. And don't forget, if anything really bad happened to this planet, amoebas and one cell organism probably are going to survive. So not underestimate one cell organisms. So this looks a little bit like a nucleus, and this like organelles, and this like a cell membrane. And cell membrane is pretty awesome part of the cell. And this is actually what help us protect or help any cell protect. These are the limits. And this is what is doing cell signaling. This is what is making selection, what is entering, what is and not what is staying outside. And try to make this kind of a drawing and to put here what you do and how do you preserve what is going to enter your inner life and what you're putting outside. How do you limit yourself, what you don't want inside of yourself, and what you put out, what you always, what you put here on the boundaries. And then, who am I now? When I say I, what do I do, think? What do I understand when I say I? How do I represent myself in the future? And what I live in the past? Okay, enough of that for the moment. Now, we said about boundaries. Let's see a little bit what we say, live outside. Stressor, we definitely live outside. And, well, usual suspect these days is definitely COVID-19. COVID-19 is a very, very actually complex virus, because it is a virus, but actually that is a lot of things that virus understand, as also Zavid a little bit mentioned in his introduction. COVID-19 is mental health issues. COVID virus is health issues, really bodily problems. It's actually economy, because it is not the same for somebody who is having parents that are working in the restaurants. It is not the same for somebody who is having some connections with politics. It's not something who are more in the social issues. for whom it is part of everyday life, media, information. There is trust issues. There is all the time things about belief system that is changing now with COVID, since it is already changing a lot. If you are also in the spiritual level, all the time think about trust. And also stressor is making stress, and this stress, it could be on our body and our mind. So what can we do? Well, there are things we can do and there are things we cannot do. We cannot do a lot of things if it attacks our body, but we can do a lot of things which comes on our mind. So there are the things which are put in a grade, what we can do, and there are things we cannot do. But first thing which can we do is can differentiate what is a stressor or what is stress, and definitely they are not the same. We can, first of all, recognize the stress. Stressor. Stressor is what is, first of all, what is happening to you is not something that we can neglect. Even if it's happening to so many people at the same time, it is happening to you. You know, it is what is it was already there before, something that is now attacking you. And then what is happening from before and what is happening now are two different things. And that is very important to know what is belonging to COVID and what was before. And it is very, very sometimes tiny little differences. It is very important to know, because sometimes we tend to project to COVID and to COVID problems a lot of things that are not connected to COVID. And it is not to make now scapegoat to COVID. COVID is definitely a bad guy in these days, but it is, if we put onto COVID's shoulder something that it doesn't belong to COVID, we are doing a bad favor to ourselves. Then name the stressor, define it precisely, especially when it's a combination stressor, and try to define what is from outside and from this inside. What is connected with our emotional stuff, what is connected with our belief systems, what is connected with the problem of our body, what is from our spiritual side, what is connected with our mind, what is connected with our isolation, for example. It is not the same thing. Then, what is controllable, what is not controllable? Absolutely not the same thing. What is not controllable, try not to focus on it. Recognize the type of stress responses. What is the typical one? What are the new responses and what are the borrowed responses? Borrowed responses are those that we are doing just the same thing like our mother, father, sister, sibling, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whoever. Because sometimes we tend to react like our surrounding. And definitely in that moment, it ends up being worse. And then differentiate the spiritual, emotional, and behavior responses. Because spiritual responses, when I say spiritual, I think I'm not talking about religious, I think really transcendental, meaning of those who are really connected to our belief systems, something that is very, very deep inside of us, something that how we see things, for what reason things are happening, what we think that is happening. Okay, let's then see next one. What are my stress responses that I control and handle well? Which ones overwhelm me, but I can cope with or avoid? Meaning, there are some stress responses that I can help me. You know, because I can say like, hey, I'm actually quite well with that. I mean, I can do that. That means that I can do some other things well. If I did that well, I'm actually not that bad. You know, and then there's some which make me totally out of control. For this, I can ask for help from others. No, try to nuance things. Nuancing is usually very good because usually people who are making and functioning on a black and white mode are having a little bit more difficulties to go out of the situation rapidly. I will not say that they have a lesser good outcome or whatever, but just they cope a little bit less well. nuancing is actually very good. When you have if you will have a spectrum, extremes are usually more complicated. In the middle is usually always a little bit easier. What are my bodily reactions? Nothing to do with COVID, but in usually handling with pandemic, like insomnia, anxiety, back pain and stuff, because there's something that nothing to do with COVID, but just we are usually when we are anxious, we react like that because people, when they are having some kind of unknown situation, this uncertainty that I was talking before, they would react in a very, very, very typical way. For example, when you have exam, there were people who will have some kind of stomach problems or they wouldn't sleep whole night. And try again to distinguish these things. And then again, I'm coming back to the spiritual part. What do I believe will happen? Because like when you have a medicines, there is a placebo and nocebo effect. Placebo is like, oh, I take a drug and immediately I take it, even if it's a sugar water, I feel better. Well, there is also nocebo. I believe nothing will ever happen. Nothing will ever help me. And even if I take the best medicine in the world, I will not feel well. Well, that could happen also here. Like I'm so scared of anything, and I'm so scared that I will be in the pain, and then I will be in the pain. So if you believe that you will really suffer a lot, then most likely that you will suffer a lot. So just try to think what you were feeling and believing before all this was happening, and try to have some neutral position. Is it possible that just nothing will happen, or just it will just be fine, or just will be normal? Just try to think for a day that everything will be normal. Not good, not bad, just normal. Like positive thinking sometimes end up being really overpraised and makes also very, very opposite reactions, because people just end up with positive thinking having a lot of suspicion. So try just to be neutral, and sometimes try just to think of what is good for me in the short term, long term, and also very important question: what are benefits of this situation? What is actually good for me in this moment? Because that's really interesting. Sometimes people have a benefit of a bad situation. They just don't work, or they're just a little bit and somebody takes care of them. Or sometimes it's also very pleasant. Sometimes just, sometimes nothing ever happens. And also, one also counterintuitive, and sometimes we are not very, very feeling proud to say that, but sometimes we feel guilty of something that is happening bad. Sometimes we do feel guilty that we like something that's happening. Probably that many people have a little pleasure of watching zombie movies or wishing that the zombie movies become real. So think about that pandemics make sometimes people feel happy, and try not to judge that. Just think about if that happened for you for a moment. Just don't try to judge any feeling that you have, even if it's something that is not very common or not very pleasant. And then, how do you feel about this ongoing polarization in society? There's a lot of love and hate in the society. There is a lot of pre-born feelings in society. Try just to see what's happening about that for you. Just nothing again. Just try not to judge. This is anyway, all that what I'm asking you to do that today, I ask you to do that with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Not asking you even to write anywhere. Just you with yourself. But just to say, if you write somewhere, it's usually very, very strong and great. Or draw. Well, speaking of drawing, this is not so bad. Just a little scheme. My actual stressors. How do I stress myself? what is stressing me? Not how I stress myself, but also we do stress ourselves also quite a lot sometimes. What stress me? How my body instinctively reacts. This is the schema, like how we separate the things. How I feel, what I think. Well, for example, there is a COVID stressed me, and like for example, economical side of stress. COVID stressed me. For example, I have restaurants and nobody comes to my restaurant. How my body instinctively reacts. I have a palpitation. How I feel? Well, I feel I cannot breathe. I'm stressed. I feel sad about that. What do I think? I think I will never go out from this ever again. What I believe is going to happen, I think I'm going to have to close everything and I will never go out from this. How I act, well, I cry and I call on my family and I say like, please help me. For example, this is one schema. Well, this is emotional behavior chain, and it is very interesting to see how very often to say there I'm going to. How can I change it? Can I change here? Can I? This is usually we try to in a psychotherapy to try to see what is the worst. We try with the worst. Okay, and then we say, okay, is it the worst that you call the family? Well, it is because my uncle will say me this and this, and then I will feel worthless. Okay, but do you think that is a worthless? Well, not because that uncle actually I don't like him and this and this, and then we go through that. We usually try with the worst case scenario, and then we try to see is it really the worst case scenario. But and very often we see very interesting things, and very often that we were actually very capable of changing something in this behavior chain. But this how I act is very interesting because very often we see something like this. That we try to change this chain. We end with something very nice, like I am happy to help, for example. And then we make this. I'm not going to read you all of this because this is one typical entering to burnout. I'm happy to help, I can do it, and I can do it well. If not me, who else? And then I'm tired, I will try a little bit more. Why not me? Well, actually, it is why not the others? I can stand it, whatever happens. And then I hate it, it is meaningless, nothing works, nothing ever works, and then we go into the spiral. And then we get tired and tired and tired and more tired, and we end up in a pre-burnout and then in a burnout. And here I'm going to say a few words about the burnout because this is something that we don't need the COVID to be there, but definitely COVID made it really, really, really much more present in our society. And I do think if one thing COVID was, let's say, helpful, a little bit helpful, that is that make us whole world finally takes burnout seriously, and for the first time burnout will officially be taken in official classification on the mental health, something that you were asking for years and years to be taken seriously. In the next DSM, it will be finally recognized as a mental condition. And burnout is actually having three criteria: exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced personal accomplishment. What it means? Exhaustion means that is a generalized fatigue, meaning that we just cannot function anymore, that we have very exhaustive, we have to devote more and more time and more we work. It's not actually perceived to be beneficial. The personalization is very, very important and very, very often not really taken seriously, but actually is distant and different attitude to work. Means that we get the more and more cynical and our interaction with our colleagues end up being the more and more impersonal, and more and more our interaction end up being really bitter. And then reduce the personal accomplishment in that we end up being really negatively evaluated our own work and our capacity to perform. And then on the other side is that the opposite to this is satisfaction with our work, good mutual communication, understanding with colleagues, and being recognized. Good news is, if you have one of these three, if you are satisfied, or if you have a good mutual communication with colleagues, or if you are feeling recognized, you will never end up being burnout. So think about these three, and they will save you. These are really, this is like in a geometry. You need these three in order to be steady. And so this is something, if something you have some message to come with it to home, take home message, this is these questions to our burnout. And I have here one asterisk, so think about this little asterisk for later. So 6 questions. Do I work too much? Do I feel I'm lacking control of my life? Do I feel my efforts are not recognized? Am I losing sense what I'm doing for a community? What is the meaning of my work? Do I missing equality? Do I feel that it's lack of justice of what I'm doing? And what are my conflicts of values? That is not congruent what I'm working, that is just something is not coherent. And then second thing, this is again a little problem of my slide. This is compulsive triad, and this is double asterisk, so please remember this one. This is something that we to have a little self-checkup from time to time. If I'm entering to this little Bermuda triangle of myself, if I'm feeling guilty, if I'm exaggeratedly responsible, and I'm self-doubting myself. So think about now this, because in a normal situation, this is a little spectrum. On one side, this is well-being, like I'm feeling fine, I'm productive, I'm working. And here it is everything that could happen to me, like when I'm depressed, like this, I'm entering really mental health conditions. This is pre-burnout, when it's starting being, I'm already entering in a gray zone, and this is really pure burnout. All these 3 points are already there. Usually exhaustion is the first one, and then is depersonalization starting, and very fast after that is reduced personal accomplishment. Here I put when you start asking yourself questions, compulsive triad, questions about burnout, and again, pandemics, look at it. Already everything is much earlier. Pre-burnout is already here, burnout is already here. Everything is much more faster. And that's why questions need to be asked much earlier. So, conclusion about all of that. Well, what COVID-19 brought us? Much more uncertainty that already been there since forever. But what we don't know, how much it's going to last. I'm pretty much optimistic. I heard quite a lot of optimistic announcement from the WHO that this year is expected that pandemics will go again to the status of just a normal status of the normal epidemic status of COVID, and that we will go out of this Omicron will be last one. But I'm cautious like everybody. Is that going to repeat? Maybe. What I'm really much more cautious is the infodemics. What is the best strategy for confronting the future? It's very difficult. There are so many uncontrollable parameters. We still have our brain and our statistical learning. But what we have and what is the best what we have, it is ourselves. And we have that parameter that we have also very, very always is useful to know better. And this is our temporality, our boundary limits, and it is very, very worth of checking on this compulsive triad from time to time, and to know how to face novelty. And I think take-home message is that we know a little bit what are the stressors. We know how to interact with others. We know what is a compulsive triad, what is our past self, what is a future self, and a little bit, this is us, all parts of us. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dragana. So it's been wonderful, to how you dissect the problem and try to do that, self-assessment, to do list, and how do you identify your own fear and your own compulsive trial, and how to identify whether you are really burnout. That's the really, big problem during the COVID time. The self doubt has increased. So the triad which we have shown, so it's there. So we have a first question, I think, from Hanmeet Dandiwal.
Can you please help us to know about how can we keep ourselves motivated to perform daily course? Because again, the situation of lockdown and the impact on us still not cured. So this is a very good question, how to perform daily course because the situation of lockdown. Yeah, well, lockdown is definitely one of the worst situation because there was absolutely no way to know when is the end. I think the motivation for the daily course was, well, I will maybe be a little bit banal here, but one thing is daily routine. Daily routine is something that sounds a little bit counterintuitive. If I say, because you are already in the lockdown and then I add you something to do what is already repeating. But actually here you are doing actually something that you put yourself in a control. Because lockdown is something that somebody else put you in a routine which is obliged from outside. If you put yourself in a routine, you making your own rules. Honestly, what works the best if you are that kind of a person, and I don't know, but usually works the best if you make every single day one routine like 10 minutes, for example, 10 or 15 minutes, not more, of something like guided or not guided, mindfulness or meditation or something like that. You sit, you close your eyes or you put your headphones or something like that. You meditate, you listen to something. Then you do some stretches or yoga or Tai Chi, whatever, but something you do something with your body. Then you do half an hour or whatever, something, whatever of creative things, what you do. And then you do whatever you have to do. And then you have a pauses and whatever. But it is very important that you do in some order that is always the same order, and you do that in the beginning of the day, not later, and absolutely without thinking like, oh, I have to do that for later. Absolutely, it is complicated to do that in the end. Even if you're not a morning person, if you can do that in the morning, it's definitely better. Of course, if you have to do something, you have online courses or something, then you have to adapt to that. But try to do that really something that you are starting the things that you are the author of the things, you are making all the all the rules, and definitely it is not something that you are going to do against your will, and not something that you hate to do. Definitely there are some things that you like to do, but then on the other hand, try not to do things that you are doing against your will just because you have to do that, and that you are judging yourself, and that you're doing that by hating you can hate myself, you can hate me, but you try not to do that with a hate feeling. If there is a hate feeling, try just to do it, just to skip a day. How we can encourage children in the pandemic to their mental health should not get suffer because they're not aware for the past pandemic. They're not aware with their post-pandemic effects. Children actually are much tougher that is very interesting how children are actually tougher than we're thinking in the beginning, but that doesn't mean that we should use that or abuse that, because we don't know how long that will last. Children definitely, children most of the time had the option to go out, but and they should use that option as much as they can. But if it's possible, it is good that they have a creative activities, and then also not to have a lot of TV, not a lot of screens, and to have learning. Learning means not to have necessarily learning that is boring learning, like curriculum of school, but whatever learning, songs, foreign language, some interesting, even if it's screen, there is this kind of educative math or something like that. And also there is a lot of what is the bricolage in English? Like making collages and stuff like that with hands. Handcrafting, yeah. Handcrafting is very, very useful for the children. But then on the other hand, what is very important with children is, and also making storytelling with children, because it is very imaginative. So whatever is imaginative with children, and also not lying children. So meaning that talking about COVID is totally fine, talking about whatever is happening, not dramatizing, not saying that, not talking only about that, but just saying, well, this is happening, it happened before, we are going through that, but not just talking to them like adults, and not avoiding the topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's another question by Gurmeet here.
How can we remain goal-oriented in our lives and compete with our social responsibility, which carries some extent of stress when we are committed to social responsibility, which also carries some extent of stress? That is very hard. That is very hard. I think it is. This is a question actually that is, I think, without COVID, very hard, because we are all the time having a lot of stress. And I think this is our world end up being very accelerated, and we are having the social responsibilities that is very hard to prioritize. And I think as long as we don't know what is very important to us, and how, I think it is for this question, I think it's very important to know what is for you the most important in your life, for what you can to make some kind of a selection. What is your priority list? What you can live without, and what you can, if you can make a list of, let's put it 10 things in your life, and which are the first 3 things that you can just put aside for, let's put it 3 months, and just not forget about it, but just put it somehow aside and say like, okay, this I can just visit it a little bit later, and then put the three things that you say like, okay, these three things I'm going to concentrate and they are really important for me and I'm going to invest in that. And then you take three things and then say like, okay, these three things I'm going to every once a month I'm going to go and check on them, and I'm going to just really take once a month and do best I can, and then I'm going to check it once a month. And then you take one thing and say like, I really love this thing, and I really this is my priority. And then this is how you're going to see what is really important for you. Just don't give to everything the same importance, because not everything in this life is the same. You are the most important, and sometimes we really tend to please everybody, and this is the very sad in this life, that we are learned not to hurt others, and it is very noble not to hurt others, but then in that game we end up hurting ourselves. So try not to hurt yourself.
So yeah, I don't think any other question. So one question from my side is, so we have seen the phone addiction has increased during this COVID time, and people are now, like for example, if they start think that the phone is the extension of my body, they don't like you say yes, So the phone addiction is one issue. Now when the COVID is over, how to get back to the normal where we are not stick to phone.
Yeah.
Because most of work is online and everything, and we are dependent on gadgets and everything, and our social life has hampered. Even though we are sitting together, we're still family. Every four of us has a different phone. Normally, people. So how to get back to the normal life post COVID era.
I'm not really sure that we will go back to the normal life. In that sense, I think this is a normal life now. I think we just jumped into something new. I think we're going to stay that. I will tell you something very interesting, that before COVID, well, we are still in COVID, but I mean before, totally, when I was having patients who would go to the vacation, we will say, hey, bye-bye, let's see in 2-3 weeks or something like that. And now patients go for a vacation, so nothing to do with COVID, and then they would immediately say like, oh, I'm in Costa Rica and we schedule for so I called him from Costa Rica. They just keep on calling, no more. Now everybody keep on being everywhere in the world, and we keep on having sessions. Like people are now got used that we are capable of talking from wherever in the world. And I realized that people just realized that everybody whole world is now reachable. And is it good or not? Well, I think that, from one point, it is good that we are reachable, we are all connected even more, because for something definitely it's nicer. But then on the other hand, I think that we are losing a little bit more of these moments of silence, or moments of thinking or metabolizing on ourselves, and I do think that we'll probably go now from one period of just being overwhelmed and all having more phones or everything, and then it will probably last for some period, and then we will again slowly being overwhelmed, and then we will just have again a little revolution of silence, and get a little bit less exposed to phones and everything. As usually, world goes like in cycles. So I would say that it will be a couple of years of more of everything, and until we again we will try just to breathe again. But no, I don't think that we will just immediately stop. I think we will have a little bit, we will just continue in the same pace.
Yeah. Thank you. So as you correctly said, it's pros and cons for everything. And yeah, so I think there's no more question. Anybody want to ask any question? They can post it here. So if there is no question, I once again thanks Dr. Dragana to accept our offer and share her views. And I'm sure all the student and faculty has noted down. She has given some task and circles to fill, because the identification of self is a very important aspect in psychiatry, I think also that. And then only once you realize the problem, then you will take a next step. Once you are not sure it's a problem, which I'm
Yeah,
sure all of us you agree that if you follow correctly that diagnostic statistical manual for mental disorder, which is the bible for in psychiatry, to
yeah.
identify. So every one of us has some or the other screw,
Yeah,
like, agree on me? Yeah, like, you agree with me that we all
yeah,
have some kind of abnormality or thing. Maybe it's not affecting work life. In some people, it's major issues, and for the identification is one, and then start working on that. So Dr. Dragana has given some tips for all of us to work on, and I'm sure student will work on that. And if you have any issue, she has shared her email address, and also you can connect to me also, and we'll try
mhm.
to first sort it out here, and then we can take a help from her. So it was nice meeting you again after a long time, and I'm looking forward when the things go well and you will be here. This thing, yeah. So yeah, Dr. Pawan is our HOD in biotechnology. He's saying, uh, thanks for such a knowledgeable talk and shared huge experience to combat the pandemic situation.
Thank you
So
very much. It was a huge pleasure being with you and doing and great work. And happy to see you in India, which I like
yeah,
very, very
sure. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for listening to all of us. And yeah,
much. Thank you.
see you around. Bye.
Bye.